Now, because a lot of guys, again, like hopped on SARMs after Andrew's Armageddon and are going to figure out some way to, utilize some of this stuff too. Do you guys have an idea of how long someone should like have experience in the gym and maybe with their nutrition before they do this? Because the last thing I would like is like a lifter that's 1 year in. They're like, oh, I need to do this also so I can start making some gains.
The biggest mistake people make is hopping on the drugs right away. What is going to build muscle and what's going to keep the muscle there is hard training. So if you train naturally, you learn to love to train, right? All of us, we started training naturally. We just love training. I would go to the gym every day, even if I knew I wasn't getting an ounce of muscle, just because I love how I feel after. That's my stress release, right? That's the time I turn off my phone, and that's my 90 minutes to myself. Mm-hmm. Then when you add drugs in, training's even better, right? Like when you're training on drugs, you feel like the Hulk, right? Yeah. Like your pumps are so full, you take your shirt off in the mirror, you look incredible. Now the issue is that if you didn't develop that love for training before, when you're off the drugs, you're not going to want to train anymore because it sucks. You don't get the same pumps. You don't feel the same way. You take your shirt off. You don't have that same hardness and crispness to your muscle. So if you learn how to love to train and you learn to train properly first, you're still going to train off cycle. And the most successful bodybuilders, I think of guys like Ronnie Coleman, they actually turn pro naturally. Because if you learn to train, you learn to eat, you learn how to do everything properly, then you add the drugs in, it's going to be like pouring gasoline on an open fire. But if you're using the drugs right away, you don't even know how to train, you're not going to, it'd almost be like an amateur cook having a set of $1,000 knives in the most expensive pots. Like I could have, the most expensive pots but I don't really know how to, I'm not a great cook, so it wouldn't really help me. Having a $1,000 knife isn't going to do me any benefit than having, like a decent $50 knife. And what I recommend is, people new to the gym, don't even take supplements, right? Like develop one good habit at a time. Is like the first 6 months, just train and diet. That's all you need. Then if you want to add in some supplements, add in some creatine or some aminos or whatever. And then, once you've been training maybe 2 or 3 years, then you can consider using performance enhancing drugs. If you are in a committed relationship, you're married, you have kids, talk it over with your wife. There's no such thing as one cycle. Everyone who says there does one cycle, that's crap. It's something you're going to end up doing the rest of your life. I think it's very, very important to be open with your significant other, having the conversation with them, especially if you're a father or you're a mother, doing your blood work, talking it over with your doctor, making sure you stay healthy. You got to be educated with this, right? Like this isn't something you just buy on the internet and start taking. Like you really got to do your research and even learn what you are taking. Like it blows my mind when I get these Instagram messages where someone will be like, I've been taking this drug for 2 months. Is this the right dosage? And I'm like, you're asking this after you've been taking it for 2 months? Or like I've been taking this drug for 3 months. What is it? I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like I get messages like that every single day. And I'm just like, it's like, yeah, my buddy at the gym was taking, he said he got good results. So I figured I'd start taking it. And then I'm like, and then a lot of times it's steroids. So I'm like, are you using an aromatase inhibitor? Do you have like a post-cycle therapy? They're like, what are those? And I'm like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, like you go buy some Arimocin. Like go ask the guy you bought the steroids from if he has any Arimocin or Arimidex. Like you're going to get gyno. Like this is really, really serious. And then not only that, they're using crazy dosages. They're like, yeah, my buddy told me to take 3 milliliters per week. So I started taking 6. And I'm like, that's like 3 grams.
Mm-hmm. So I'll answer as to what I would have done.
This
going
is a
back
great
in time.
answer, by the way. This is fun.
What I would have done is I would have started taking SARMs at age 16, honestly.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because I was training since I was 12. I already had training down by 16. 4 years of like, I was insane about it. Training, diet, everything. So, but maybe even if I started at 15, whatever, I would have liked to have taken before I finished puberty. Because I think it would have made more permanent changes, adaptations to my body to make it easier to build muscle the rest of my life.
Really?
A man doesn't finish going through puberty till about the age of 23. I wouldn't take anything that binds the androgen receptor before then. It could prevent you from going through puberty properly. I just don't think it's smart for anyone to take anything before the age of 23. That goes for SARMs, steroids, pro-hormones.
So you guys are totally different on this. You guys do not agree on this.
We do not agree on this.
I'm the conservative Canadian. He's, 20
He's the nice one. Yeah, that's essentially what I was going to say too, because people have been reaching out and they are like, 15, 16 years old. And I'm just like, look, man, like it's going to suppress your testosterone and you don't even know where your like testosterone is going to get to, but you're already going to suppress it by taking stuff. Just wait. But that's why, like I said, it's going to be fun listening to your answer because I knew what you were going to say.
And I think most people shouldn't do what I do. Because I am crazy, right? And that's my character, and that's who I am. As I'm in this other extreme side, doesn't mean everybody should join me over here. It's dangerous over here. I'm not taking responsibility for anybody harming themselves. I'm just saying what I would do.
Yeah.
And then, if you talk to me more and we had more hours and hours to go through it, I think everybody would be like, aha, I get it. I understand. Don't assume that just because I'm saying something that sounds crazy, it wasn't extremely well thought out.
Most of the people that are like, talking the way that you guys are mentioning, people sending you messages and saying, hey, like I'm 15, I'm, curious, like they're going to get on them at some point anyway. Telling them, hey, like, yeah, it might be better to wait till you're, 23, but even also just pointing them in a direction of like, hey, like this is a good website to like learn more about it. I mean, I remember being a kid and the second I started to learn about steroids, I'm like, I'm taking those. That sounds awesome. Like that sounds really cool. I didn't think I was going to take them as a kid. I didn't think I was going to take them like young. So I did wait. I was probably about 25 when I started, but I always kind of had them in the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, when I kind of like feel like I'm mature with my lifting and feel like I've gotten to a good spot with it, I'm probably going to use some stuff because I'd love to see, what's possible for me. What am I capable of?
So we actually just wrote an ebook on SARMs. It's going to be a collaboration between me and Tony. I finished my section. Right now it's 60 pages.
Let's go, Tony.
It's all, so my section is all the clinical information, right? It's like what these drugs are, how they work, all the clinical studies. But let's take Osterin, for example. The problem with Osterin is that the highest dosage used in a clinical study was 3 milligrams. Now, 3 milligrams was non-suppressive. But we know through anecdotal evidence that higher dosages, the dosages that recreational users typically use of 25 milligrams, is suppressive, right? So you kind of got to take these clinical trials with a bridge of salt, right? Same thing with any steroid clinical trial. They were using testosterone replacement therapy dosages, right? So something like Anavar, you'll read a clinical trial where they use 2 milligrams per day and it was not liver toxic. You cannot extrapolate that and then say, well, 50 milligrams per day is safe, right? You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. So I basically summed up all the clinical research, explained in layman's terms how these drugs work, all the different things. What's really interesting about SARMs is that the KM value is a dissociation value, which is how the affinity for a drug to bind to the androgen receptor. So something like LGD, for example, has a KM value of 1. Testosterone in comparison is 40. So LGD will bind to the androgen receptor 40 times more efficiently than testosterone. Now, the problem with typical LGD is that the oral bioavailability is not great because it's not methylated. Now, that's a positive in the fact it's not methylated, it's not liver toxic, but it's a negative in the fact that I'd say the oral bioavailability is maybe 5 to 10%. Now, one thing me and Tony have recently started experimenting, and one thing we use in the Generation IO transformation is injectable SARMs. And I truly believe injectable SARMs are going to revolutionize bodybuilding. Because if you have a drug that binds the androgen receptor 40 times more efficiently than testosterone, and you have 100% bioavailability, just think about that. Like, that is really, really powerful. So injectable SARMs are very, very exciting. There's even question if some SARMs are even bioavailable orally at all. Stenobolic, for example, SR9009, all the clinical trials were using injectable stenobolic. The doctor who formulated stenobolic actually was like, why are people taking oral stenobolic? Like, it doesn't work. Now, I think it is orally bioavailability, but very poor, maybe 1 to 5%. So a lot of these compounds, you really need to inject them to get proper absorption. The only exceptions would be YK11 and S23 because those ones are methylated. Now, with them being methylated, they're liver toxic, so you'd only want to be using those in short duration.
And this book is purely on SARMs, right?
Completely SARMs.
Okay. Now, are you, like you said that you started doing some stuff, aren't you doing other stuff other than SARMs also?
SARMs, GH, and insulin.
Okay. So, like,
so
why?
So what we're trying to do with my transformation is show how powerful SARMs are and what you can do. And what we do with the other transformations is to show how powerful these drugs are used in combination with other drugs. Like we have had people put on over 30 pounds of muscle in 30 days, and we have the DEXA scans to prove it. The exact protocols are listed in the ebook. And what I don't really get is that I see a lot of people say like SARMs or steroids, right? It's kind of like one or the other when they work synergistically.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is that, you know, GH, insulin, supplements, SARMs, steroids, these are all kind of tools in your tool belt, right? So someone who just wants to look good with their shirt off, maybe have a six pack, has no desire to be a bodybuilder, all you need to do is maybe take some SARMs, maybe some over-the-counter supplements. Very, very simple. Someone who wants to be the next Ronnie Coleman, okay, well then it's going to take a lot more pharmacology. So what I kind of think is like you have all of these tools, and then based on your goals, pick the tools you want to use, but realize certain tools have higher side effects, right? So in these advanced transformations where we're stacking steroids and growth hormone, and insulin and SARMs, it was only 30 days, so you're not going to get that many side effects in 30 days. But realize doing this long term, it can be detrimental to your health, right? So that's why in the ebook we have beginner, cycle layouts, intermediate, and advanced. And the only reason for the advanced was to show just how powerful these drugs are, because a lot of people think SARMs don't work. SARMs are extremely, extremely powerful. The problem with SARMs is that most of them on the black market are fake, and then most people don't even really know how they work or what they are or how to use them.
Mm.
So I think the heart of your question is, if SARMs are so effective, why not just use SARMs, and why not we just do SARMs transformation? Why include all of these other things, and how powerful is the synergy between them maybe, and what more could one expect by combining these things? So when I first decided to start using SARMs, I understood that SARMs were going to activate the androgen receptor, the same or even more effectively than steroids, but they're not going to do as much stuff in the rest of the body. And some of that stuff in the rest of the body is side effects, and some is indirect benefits for muscle building. So I knew if I took SARMs to activate the androgen receptor, it could be more effective at that one thing than steroids. But then I'm missing these other categories, the other growth pathways, like trenbolone, for example. Most people would say is one of the more powerful steroids, and it's not because of what it does to the androgen receptor, it's what it does in other parts of the body. So I was thinking, okay, I don't want to do like a shotgun blast trenbolone where I'm just blasting my entire body with hormones that affects everything. I want to isolate the androgen receptor in the muscle with the SARM, and I want to figure out what other growth pathways are synergistic with it to give me the same effect or better effect than steroids without side effects. And that's where I did growth hormone and insulin. Arachidonic acid decreases inflammation, the Slim pills to increase insulin sensitivity, dealing with micronutrients to make sure there's no deficiencies. And the experiment on my body for the last 6-7 years pretty much has been, can we replace steroids with SARMs and it actually be more effective by taking advantage of the synergy between different growth pathways? And I proved it on my own body with my own experiments, and then I experiment on other people to see if they have the same experience, and we do. So when we do these transformations, we have less side effects than steroids, and the muscle building is probably 4 times faster than a normal steroid cycle, and so we don't need to do it as long. Even if there were side effects, we do a transformation in 7 days. We put on as much muscle as someone would put on in 6 weeks of a steroid cycle, and we're off. Our body's back to resting. Just maintain the gains that we made.